recording from an undisclosed location somewhere in the American Midwest. A believer and a skeptic try to find the truth. Here on Co.Spiracy Podcast.
Welcome to the Co.Spiracy Podcast, a podcast where a believer and a skeptic try to prove the other wrong.
Today's episode is episode 2, Dolce, New Mexico.
I think it's pronounced Dolce, New Mexico.
I don't know if I believe you.
Well,
Maybe if it wasn't for the hundreds of YouTube comments telling us it's pronounced Dolce. Dolce, New Mexico.
I think the funniest thing is how long you and I were calling it Dolce, New Mexico for no reason.
It was probably up until about 10 minutes before we started recording this that we had been calling it Dolce, New Mexico instead of Dolce, New Mexico.
And the funniest part is it wasn't just like we had just seen it written. We had watched at least like 10 different YouTube videos.
Listened to several audio things about it.
And we just couldn't pick it up. By the way, we should probably introduce ourselves.
I am Jay, otherwise known by my Delta Force codename, Joyous Jambalaya.
I am T, and my Delta Force codename is Target Practice.
Excellent.
Yeah. And in case anyone at home is wondering about the sharp increase of audio quality you might be experiencing right now, me and Jay went shopping today at an undisclosed shopping network somewhere in the Midwest.
Wherever we are.
And we got ourselves some new podcasting microphones. So you're getting to hear all of our plosives and consonants in crisp HD. Go ahead and give us a little taste of your audio there, Jay. Was that supposed to... Please tell me that's supposed to be George of the Jungle and not something else.
Yeah. That was, what's that actor's name? From George of the Jungle, the live action one.
Oh, I should know this. He's from The Mummy as well.
Oh, it's totally off the top of my head.
Tom Cruise. Okay.
No, you bastard. It's not Tom Cruise.
First Tom Cruise.
It is
Tom Cruise Alpha.
Okay, Google, George of the Jungle.
Brendan Fraser.
That's what it is.
Believe it or not, audience, I didn't have to Google that. As Jay was Googling that, I had the name come to me in a...
Excellent.
I think it got telecommunicated to me by the alien waves.
Yes, it was the radio waves out of Dolce, New Mexico. They were telling you it was Brendan Fraser, I believe.
Yeah, okay, well, so our audience gets the very clever joke we just came up with. Let's start explaining a little bit.
Let's dive into it then.
Okay, well, so Dolce, New Mexico.
It's the land of enchantment, baby. It's a land where a lot of strange things happen. Lots of UFOs, lots of cryptids, ghosts, all sorts of stuff. Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona is where all sorts of crazy stuff happens. And this is just going to add to those chronicles.
Yeah, it's essentially known as the second Roswell in a lot of ways.
As far as I know, it's caused a pretty big stir at the time, at least locally.
Yeah, well, so Dolce, New Mexico, it's a little Colorado, New Mexico border town in the United States, which is rumored to house a secret government base that ranges anywhere from abandoned missile silos to a jointly operated human and alien underground facility under the Archuleta Mesa.
I prefer the term dumb. Deep underground military base. That's dumb.
As the skeptic, I do have to agree that it is very dumb. This entire thing. Yeah. Reading through this, Jay, it was so hard to not want to throw something at my computer.
You cannot deny the fact that there is something here underneath the beautiful white sands of New Mexico.
Okay, well let's talk about it. Let's talk about where these rumors start, because they start out in a pretty interesting place with a man named Paul Benowitz. Paul Frederick Benowitz Jr., born September 29th of 1927, died pretty recently, June 23rd of 2003. Originally
15 years ago.
It seems more recent than
a decade and a half, maybe. That's not recent.
Okay, well, he was an American businessman who owned a business called Thunder Scientific, which was situated just adjacent to the Kirkland Air Force Base in New Mexico, which is another kind of centralized point of a lot of the things that were going on there. He is known as kind of one of the fathers of UFO conspiracy theories in the 80s. He was a big pusher of these theories. This started because there was a series of cattle mutilations going on around New Mexico, and we won't get too much into it because it's actually pretty interesting. The more and more I read about it, it's an entire rabbit hole. I think we're going to have to do a separate episode on cattle mutilation itself. But it's also known as bovine excision, unexplained livestock death. It's
basically where like cattle are mutilated. Their anal cavities cored out. And usually, all their blood is removed.
Yeah, that's what you're going to start with, huh?
That is one of like the telltale signs of these things. That a lot of times they will core them cattle out like an apple, big old beefy apple, baby.
And this is why we have to put the explicit tag on the podcast. But it's more than just that. It's the killing and mutilation of the cattle in a very strange and unusual manner. And one of the biggest telltale signs is there's no blood and it's anonymous circumstances. I mean, we won't get too much into it, but it's a strange phenomenon that actually was happening and investigated by the U.S. government.
Not to mention the decades upon decades of other UFO sightings. Bigfoot sightings have happened in New Mexico, Chupacabra sightings. Roswell, the thing that kind of kicked off the UFO craze in the United States throughout the entire 20th century was basically, it happened in New Mexico also, just a couple hours south of Dolce. So I'm not surprised that if there was a place for there to be a dumb, remember that stands for deep underground military base, I'm not surprised that place would be New Mexico.
Yeah, well, and one of the biggest things for Benowitz was that what really got him going was the fact there were so many cattle mutilations going on, and it's this area that Colorado, New Mexico area that had more cattle mutilations than anywhere else in the United States. So he became convinced that these mutilations were done by aliens to try to gather genetic material.
Why do they think that? Why do you think they were done by aliens?
He claimed that he started to intercept radio signals.
Right.
Radio signals that were coming from the area near Dulce, that they were messages that didn't make sense to be sent to such a small town. And he theorized that they were actually coming from some underground source and being shot into the sky to make contact with something in space, something in the sky over New Mexico.
Yeah, because weren't the radio waves strangely powerful for something to be originating from such a small town?
Exactly. Like he claimed these signals didn't make sense coming from where they were. So
before you continue on, I'd like to point out that Benowitz is actually pretty educated. He went to university for physics for a long time. I heard that he had some sort of PhD level of education in physics, so he's by no means a dumb man. And at this time, he would have still been in a fairly mentally stable age. He would have only been probably in his like late 30s at this time. I believe he was born in 1927. Is that what that says right there?
In 1927.
Yeah, so it's not like he's a crazy old man that's doing this or anything like that. He's still pretty sharp at this point in his life.
He found these signals and started thinking they were from UFOs. And he believed that these UFOs were flying out of major military installations around the area, Kirkland Air Force Base, the Manzano Nuclear Weapons Storage Facility, and the Coyote Canyon Test Area. But then on top of all this, he theorized there was another base, some secret underground base, which he started referring to as the Dolce base. And he started telling this idea to others. It was around 1982 where he started going around and speaking about what he thought to other UFOologists or whatever you want to call them.
Ufologists, thank you very much.
Is it really pronounced ufologist?
Every single documentary I've ever heard on the subject, it has been ufology, ufologist.
I hate that.
It's better than UFOology. That's just, that double O sound just kind of kills me a little bit inside every time I hear it.
Okay, well, after this, in 1988, he finally wrote down his findings about something called Project Beta, which I didn't read personally. I don't know if you've read it.
I have not read it.
But it was supposedly information about his gatherings on the base and what he thought might be going on there and how it might have been built and things like that. Now, what a lot of people theorize, kind of the lesser of the many conspiracies revolving around this, is that he might have not actually been seeing UFOs, but had stumbled upon tests of new radical aircraft. Very similar to a lot of the conspiracies around the UFO at Roswell. If it wasn't a UFO, what it might have been. Similar things were going on in this area.
Right. And what year did this happen? Was this, late 60s going on?
He began talking about it in 1982. Project Beta came out in 1988. So it was probably the early 80s, late 70s.
So a lot of the stuff then could have been associated with the normal things that people try to classify UFOs as, but before they were declassified, things like the F-117, perhaps early prototypes of the B-2 Spirit, the SR-71 Blackbird, the normal things that people will try to say are what people are seeing in the skies over the American western deserts. The normal stuff that they got flying out of Groom Lake, as we all know, Area 51.
And so he was convinced they were UFOs. No matter what anyone told him, he's convinced because he went to several places to try to get this information out. Specifically, he went to speak to the Aerial Phenomena Resource Organization, who they basically just called him delusional and paranoid. They said, "You have nothing. Quit bugging us."
As is usual in the United States, Americans especially tend to be very critical of us UFO supporters over here, whereas those good old enlightened Europeans and Asiatics, they're usually pretty accepting and open about pilots coming out and talking about these things, air traffic controllers, military personnel. It's not shamed over there like it is here in the United States.
I read something really interesting today. I think I was sharing this with you earlier about how France in 1999 actually released a paper that they said they believed the United States might be actually hiding information from its citizens about these incidents that were regarded as UFO sightings.
I think that's really kind of an open secret at this point because the ex-Canadian Minister of Defense said pretty much the exact same thing, that he had collaborated with American military officials about things regarding a cooperation with aliens. At this point, in my mind, it's more of an open secret that the government does deny these sorts of things.
It seems like it's one person at a time who's coming out about these things, which is why I remain kind of skeptical.
Whoa. One person at a time. Let's talk about Project Disclosure here, buddy.
Well, we talked about Project Disclosure last time, which it's very interesting, but that's what I think we're about to get into is a lot of these individual accounts, which they're very interesting stories. They are. They got my attention. I just don't know if they're as credible as a lot of people make them out to be.
Makes sense.
Because, to finish up about Benowitz, it came out later that he was actually purposely being fed misinformation. There was a former special agent of the U.S. Air Force named Richard Doty who claimed that during the 1980s, his job was specifically creating hoax documents and giving false information to UFO researchers, one of which was Benowitz. Not only that, but he recruited a friend of Benowitz, someone who actually co-authored a book called The Roswell Incident, named William Moore, to help him feed this false information to push Benowitz into a state of delusional paranoia, which eventually led to him having this mental breakdown and basically giving up his research of UFOs.
I would like to point out that this is a known thing that the government does. It's called disinformation, and it happens all the time with all sorts of things. There's even been a couple times that the government's been caught in these sorts of lies where they've been caught feeding disinformation to the public.
Yeah. Which I thought that was very interesting, that it is not really argued that the government was feeding him misinformation. I have to point out that was something that it seemed almost every source I read, no one had any way to disprove that was happening. Everyone seemed unified in their beliefs that this was actually what was happening. So he wasn't crazy. He was being told these things. He was seeing these documents, and he went along with it.
It makes you wonder if he got too close to the truth, perhaps.
Well, I think maybe he was snooping around some Air Force bases, and I don't think that's ever appreciated by the United States government.
Yeah, but lots of people yearly, every day you got people wandering too close to those things, talking about something or other. You're not seeing them, feeding them disinfo. No, you're seeing them lock them up.
Well, there's a difference between someone who is spending a day checking out Air Force Base and someone who's dedicated their life to finding information.
Yeah, but this is if they catch him snooping around an Air Force Base, this is before the age of social media. I'm sure they could have found a way to lock him up without anyone knowing what's really going on. The government's great at lying, you know that.
He made claims he was being followed and bugged and stuff like that, which is a common theme between a lot of these people who have come out with stories about Dolce. They claim that they are being watched and followed. It's has a very paranoid feel to it a lot of the times.
I don't necessarily blame him. If you feel like you have come across proof of the United States government's collaboration with aliens, I would be I'd be worried for my own skin too after hearing what some of the Men in Black types do to those people.
Well, and it's not necessarily to say that Dolce is related to aliens. There are other theories about what might have formed this secret underground base that people are talking about. What was it you were showing me earlier today about Project Gas Buggy?
Yeah, so that was the project that most of us are claiming that is what created, or was kind of created as a way to build the Dolce underground base. Basically, Project Gas Buggy was a project started by the Atomic Energy Commission to find peaceful construction-related purposes for nuclear weapons and nuclear explosions.
This was a sub-project of a much larger project called Plowshare, correct?
Yes. I actually misspoke there. Plowshare was the overarching program for this. Gas Buggy was one that was strictly related to a location about... each detonation had its own project name, and Gas Buggy was the one for a detonation that happened 30 miles away from Dolce, New Mexico. And this formed a very deep crater that, many believe was intended to be used for construction of this base.
It was claimed that this explosion was meant to extract natural gas from the environment, correct?
Yeah, so the Atomic Energy Commission worked side by side kind of with the New Mexico Natural Gas Corporation to work on ways of extracting natural gas. And there was also 1969 and 1973, respectively. There was also 2 more Plowshare detonations in New Mexico, Project Rollison and Project Rio Blanco. Yeah, and so, digging even to this day still requires some direct approval from the Atomic Energy Commission in those areas, as, radioactivity is still fairly high there. And remember, this happened explicitly for the purpose of construction. So this was right during the height of the Cold War, Cuban Missile Crisis, all around this time. This was when the United States was looking to beat the Soviet Union at any cost.
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's another thing about the Cold War, since you've mentioned that. There was a political scientist, Michael Barkin, who wrote that it was possible that a lot of these rumors came from the fact that there were underground missile installations in the area around that, and maybe someone stumbled upon one of these and misinterpreted what it really was.
I think that what we should realize here is that the fact that the United States has undisclosed underground locations, I mean, we already know of some, like Cheyenne Mountain, that's also in Colorado, no, not too far away. Lots of rumors of Groom Lake, Area 51, having underground facilities, location S4 or whatever it's called there. There are tons of these things. Even local Air Force bases near us have, local rumors of there being sprawling underground complexes. At this point, there's so many construction and internal personnel related with the military, I would not be surprised if there are massive underground installations. If there was going to be any place that they would make these, it would be here where the water table is low and the dirt is soft.
Yeah, and I can't deny that the United States government expressed an interest in underground bases pretty early on. Before these events took place, there was something specifically I found, and please take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because the website I found it on was not the most reliable looking place. It was a study done by Project RAND, which is basically this big brain trust think tank that does a lot of research, partnered with the government and several other...
It is the RAND Corporation, thank you very much, founded by Douglas Aircraft. Thank you very much.
Okay, well...
It's not a project.
So maybe that even makes this website a little bit more sketchy, since I didn't even give you that much information, but... It was from a deep underground construction symposium in March 1959. The report read, just as airplanes, ships, and automobiles have given man mastery of the surface of the earth, tunnel boring machines will give him access to the subterranean world.
I really tried my damnedest to find the study that was quoted from. I say I tried my damnedest. I tried for about 5 minutes to find it, and I wasn't having much luck with it. There's lots of studies that the RAND Corporation has done about underground things. Underground highways, I found one on that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was going to be a corporation that's involved with it. The RAND Corporation sounds like the perfect candidate in order to advise which was their job, was to advise the United States military on things.
I don't doubt that there was some interest in building bases. That's not the biggest thing I have a problem with. Let's get into what my biggest problem is. Are these claims that people have about this base,
like our good friend Phil Schneider, baby.
Well, let's wait on him, because we're going to get to him. Let's start out with one. Just in general, there were people in that area report a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
strange things, lights in the sky. They claim they're UFOs. Strange noises.
I've seen one myself, baby. You know
really?
Me.
Yeah. Have you really?
I have.
Huh, we'll have to talk about this some other time. This episode's too packed for us to get into this right now, because there's so much information we got to get through. But we'll definitely talk about this sometime soon. But there were people reporting that strange things were going on besides light. There were the cattle mutilations. People were seeing silent Black Hawk helicopters, apparently. But in particular, we have a few standout names. For example, Tim Anderson, a former police officer from Dolce, claimed to have seen a UFO in his town sometime in the late 1990s. A quote from him was, "It lit up the whole valley and just disappeared into the rocks. I just rubbed my eyes. Did I really see that?"
I mean, if we're talking from perspective, there being an underground military base at this location, wouldn't make sense for them to have disguised entrances there. Maybe this UFO they're flying into the rock was just returning to Mother Base in Dolce.
If that's what you're going to claim, that's what you're going to claim.
I mean, how many times have you ever seen an airplane fly into a rock and be okay? Yeah,
I
no
haven't.
fireball. Yeah,
I haven't, and I don't think he did either. But because Anderson also believes that Bigfoot resides near the town.
Well, now hold up here. Like the southwestern, midwestern U.S. is like where Bigfoot lives. You know, he lives in the Ozarks. Or the Wichitas right there, eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas. He lives in Colorado, Montana.
I can't get into Bigfoot with you right now, Jay. I'm sorry. I cannot. Let's just keep powering through this. And
the musky stench of the Sasquatch is upon you, my friend.
So also we have another trooper named Gabe Valdez, who reported coming across mutilated cattle carcasses in a field outside of Dolce. And inside one of these cattle, he claimed he found something that looked like a human, a monkey, and a frog. It didn't have any bones in his head. It was all full of water. And he called this situation some kind of incubation chamber for a cloned creature.
I think it's really interesting because there is at no point in any of Gabe Valdez's statements about this that at no point does he indicate that this was an alien fetus inside this cattle. Like some people would be led to believe about this. Gabe Valdez is adamant that this is United States government involvement with this, and he kind of tries to back this up by saying that he has found evidence left at the scene, things like gas masks,
glow sticks,
yep, and radar chaff there at the site. And I think that's a really interesting quote by him that, natural predators don't leave those sorts of things at the site of predator attack.
Yeah, I do find it interesting that he seemed very adamant that it was not aliens. He said he started finding listening devices at home, and even though he saw things that he reported as UFO sightings, he claimed that it wasn't aliens. He says that there was more than just the one underground base. He claims there were 4 somewhere around Dolce, and even though they're now inactive, he did not believe there were any aliens there at any time.
I think you could ask anyone in the government, and well, maybe not anyone, but you could probably ask some people in the government, and you would probably be able to get, legit information that there were underground bases in these areas. It's not far away from White Sands Missile Range, from Los Alamos, all these places, all nuclear testing, especially in that era. Nuclear testing activity is at its highest. The arms race is on during the Cold War. The thought of there being a giant underground military base is really not that far-fetched if you really compare it. Cheyenne Mountain, which is in fact a confirmed dumb, deep underground military base. It's just that. It is a Cold War era underground military installation, and it is rather large.
The reports keep coming in around Dolce. In 1988, there was a tabloid by the Weekly World News that was titled UFO Base Found in New Mexico, in which there was a quote that claimed, "Diabolical invaders from another solar system have set a secret underground base in the rugged mountains of northern New Mexico, so they can Shanghai human guinea pigs for bizarre genetic experiments."
Props for using the term Shanghai.
So the Weekly World News used a lot of quotes from ufologist Leonard Stringfield, and as soon as someone questioned him about it, he said that "I've never read such a distortion of facts in my life." So that was not a reliable source by anyone's standards.
When I think that you are mentioning that it is a tabloid, I think you're pretty much kind of discrediting it right there. But that's like saying that the National Enquirer is a valid news source. I think we're all aware of the authenticity of a lot of the claims of those publications.
True, but I couldn't help it. I had to mention it when I found that one, because that one in particular just seemed like such a wild claim.
I think it's interesting that he called them out, saying that they're a bunch of liars about it. That's probably my favorite part about it.
Well, then let's get to the key figures, because we mentioned a lot of the smaller players. Obviously, we mentioned the father of it all, Benowitz, but
Papa Schneider.
Yes,
we're getting into the big man himself, the man that has the most claims and is the man that is really kind of at the center of this entire thing. He is the one that we have gotten some of the most information that we can at least consider.
Yes, you can consider it if you really feel.
Well, as opposed to some of the other players in the story here, we'll realize that at least Phil Schneider we know is a real person. We have in fact seen pictures of Phil Schneider.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
at the very least, some of his claims are backed up by physical means, at least on his body, for what we know so far.
Schneider claimed he worked for a dumb project.
Yeah, dumb in your words, but dumb also because it's underground.
Yes, so the deep underground military bases, once again, which he claimed it was a series of bases that spanned the continental U.S. with over hundreds of different subterranean tunnels. He claimed that one day, while digging, he and his team of colleagues had some technical difficulties and encountered gray aliens.
Gray aliens, the classic alien, the ones that they have claimed have been here for thousands of years, ones that were here in Roswell, ones that live with us at Area 51, ones that people around the world have reported seeing time and time again, even before this incident.
People, you say people have claimed they've been around for thousands of years, but
well, I take those claims loosely. We don't have any, of course, on paper verification, because the government wouldn't want you to know those things, would they?
Well, what I just want to bring up is the fact that the gray aliens, which have a lot of interesting theories around them, the classic alien image that comes to mind, they're usually long heads, elongated arms, no muscular structure,
big black eyes,
yeah, gray skin.
Gray aliens are usually reported ranging in size from anywhere from 4 feet to 7 feet, but like you said, usually their descriptions are pretty much the same. They have largely disproportionate heads, big black eyes, and spindly little limbs.
Well, and this description of aliens didn't really arise until after the Roswell crash in 1947. There's not a lot of accounts before then that describe aliens in this particular manner.
And that is true.
Maybe they haven't been around for thousands of years as people claim, if this is the...
Well, if the YouTube comments are to be believed, they were here before humans were, you know?
True. I did find one really interesting theory, not that I believe it in any kind of way, but it was an interesting read. It was a very fun science fiction story to me. That
is that the one where Greys are advanced human beings that have come back in time to come get cow samples from us or something like that?
Yeah, I see that you see my notes up on the computer.
No, you don't know. I've fallen down this rabbit hole before. I'm well aware of the Greys not actually being aliens, but in fact being superhumans from the future.
Yeah, so the hypothesis is that these gray aliens are humans that their DNA has become so damaged over time that they're no longer able to reproduce, so they have to clone.
Come back and shove their fetuses in cows.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the way it was meant to be, you know?
Yeah, well, and jump back really quick, because this was one also really interesting tidbit that I wish I'd said earlier, that you would claim that people said Greys have been around for thousands of years. A lot of people actually claim that the early use of the term fairy folk when in ancient
fairy folk, yeah, Celtic legends, baby.
They claim that those might have actually been early descriptions of the gray aliens.
I wouldn't be surprised. They're tricky little bastards. I'd like to get me some gray skulls, mount them up on my wall, right next to the deer antlers I got up there. Go and kill me. This is why they don't disclose themselves, because they're afraid of me.
I do love gray skulls. Skeletor is one of my favorite characters.
Damn, you got me there.
From the historic
documentary. He-Man. Ha ha. Yes.
I'll get you next time.
By the power of Grayskull. I knew I'd heard that term before. As soon as it came out of my mouth. All right. Anyways.
Well, so let's. He said he found these gray aliens.
Oh, and what happened when he found them? So Phil Schneider claims that he was a geological engineer for the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. He claims that he was contracted by them to help them expand Dolce base. Mm-hmm. Underneath the 7th layer, or the -7th, the 7th subterranean layer. However that's phrased for underground facilities, I'm not sure. Anyways, they broke the rock underneath it into a chasm full of nauseous smelling gas. He said that the smell, I believe a quote by him was that it smelled worse than any trash can you could have ever smelled.
Smellier than the smelliest garbage can you can imagine, I think were his words.
Bingo, I think you got it. And what ensued was probably my absolute all-time favorite depiction of human-alien interaction, even better than the beginning of that one Star Trek movie where the people in Montana kill the aliens when they show up, whenever they kill the, what was Spock?
A Vulcan?
Yeah, Vulcans. Whenever the people of Montana kill the Vulcans and take their ship.
You keep geek checking me over here. Last time was me picking out the Star Wars planet and the alien species. And now Star Trek.
Phil Schneider claims that there was a firefight that ensued between Green Berets and Delta Force with these 7-foot-tall gray aliens that shot lasers out of their chests.
Yeah, that was the craziest thing. He didn't just say, like, they're aliens. He's like, they're aliens down there. As soon as I saw them, I whipped out my pistol and I shot one in the chest. Yeah, they are mortal. They can die. I love that quote by him. Yes, they are mortal. They can die.
My favorite
I
is that
killed
he claims that he didn't kill one. He killed 2 of them.
Yes, because as one was dying, that's when it released the secret beam from its chest.
Yeah, that melted his fingers off, burned all of his nails off and everything, and that there was a brave Green Beret that he says lost his life, throwing him back into the lift elevator thing that they had going on there, and saved his life.
He actually is missing fingers on his hand.
I was, he is, honestly, that is one of the most valid things that he has to offer from this story. Yeah, because you can look at videos of him on YouTube. He is actually missing fingers from this, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and everyone knows that there's no possible way to lose your fingers besides an electrical beam from an alien.
Well,
I think that was the plot of E.T.
If this man lost his fingers some other way, don't you think that there would have someone that would have come out by now and said, "Hey, Phil Schneider is doing a crock of bullshit," that he lost his fingers with a table saw, and he saw like a sweet car driving by and just totally chopped off half his hand.
I mean, that's fair. I couldn't find anything. I didn't really look that hard for it. I should have. That should have been a major flag.
I've honestly, you say that you say this, but I think honestly the one big thing that really kind of pokes a hole in his story about that is his claims of using a Walther PPK. And for those of you that are not well firearm educated about these sort of things, he claims that he had a Walther PPK with a 9-shot magazine in it. And I think that is interesting that he claims that for a couple reasons, because if he was in fact a geological engineer or whatever his job title was, first off, I mean, I get that they were expecting to be in a somewhat hazardous environment, so I guess it would make sense that they would be carrying sidearms. However, there is at no point that the Walther PPK was used by any U.S. government office. If it was a firearm, like I don't believe that if there was a subterranean base that the U.S. government would let geological engineers bring their own firearm to work. So obviously they would equip them with, at the time, would be a Colt 1911 or something else similar to that, some other sort of actual U.S. military standard issue sidearm at the time. And the fact that there is no actual models of the Walther PP series that has a 9-round magazine in it, unless if he was misspeaking and actually had an 8-round magazine plus 1 in the chamber, which makes 9. That right there actually speaks miles to me that he was he heard that a Walther PPK was used in the James Bond movies and was going with whatever it is he knew.
Yeah, because one thing I did find is that people claim his timeline doesn't make a lot of sense, because working the jobs he claims he's working, first off, apparently the degrees he said he went to college, the colleges he said he went to get his degrees, didn't exist. So he didn't have these degrees he claimed he had, and he would have only been 17 years old when he was working for a top secret government project.
Interesting.
Yeah, which that seems to kind of make it seem a little bit less believable, and there are claims that he actually suffered from a debilitating self-harm condition. Like he had a self-mutilation disorder, and so that's the possibility that might have been what happened to his hands. He might have actually hurt himself as part of this delusion he had, and not been comfortable coming forward and giving that information out.
I think it's interesting that you say that, because he was quoted saying by both his wife and many of his friends that if he died and it looked like suicide, that it was not suicide or something to that effect. Coincidentally, happened in 1996. He was found with a catheter tube tied around his neck, which would, to me, be a very strange form of suicide.
Yeah, and it was labeled as a suicide by police, but that's not. I will not even begin to claim that would have been the first time police had mislabeled a suicide.
Yeah, we should all be well aware that the police, granted, some are great people, but not always accurate.
Yeah, no officer is perfect. No one has a perfect track record, so it's very possible that they misread the facts. But these are what is on the autopsy report. It is labeled as a suicide.
Fair enough.
But maybe to give just that shred of credence to all this, it wasn't just the Dolce story that he was looking into. He also did a lot of work digging into the government's black budget for classified program. Now, black budget is the part of the U.S. military budget that isn't disclosed to the American public, that we don't have information towards what this money goes to because they go towards classified projects.
Interesting.
And he spent a lot of time giving speeches and digging into this. And there's a quote from him in an interview, at least to the Epoch Times. He was claiming that there were thousands of underground bases around the world, 129 of which were in the United States, that each cost around $17 billion, and that he had been getting information about the black budget, which was hidden from other U.S. government agencies. He claimed that it was 25% of the gross national product went towards this black budget, and that military forces from multiple countries had been engaging in warfare with aliens using this money. So
that would be my favorite timeline. Because that would be so cool if you just had this multinational force that was going underground to fight aliens.
It's an exciting story.
I would read the fuck out of a book that was about this kind of stuff.
As many UFO enthusiasts say, I want to believe. That would be a cool story to believe.
On a side note about that, I would like to also mention that there is a deathcore, I believe is the genre song about this Dolce incident. It is by a band called Ocean O. That is O-C.
You don't sound like you're coming out with this at the top of your head. You made me listen to this song 3 times today.
Yeah, on the way to the microphone store. We listened to the song 4 times, studying for this. In fact, this is the only source we have for this podcast, was just the song.
Not even partially true. I nearly wanted to gouge my eyes out reading through all these websites.
It's a good song.
No, not the song. It was all I don't want you to discredit all the research we did, because, man, there's a lot of it. Which gets us to our final name. You know who it's going to be?
Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine.
Thomas Costello, which is
Dolce bass.
Yes. So let's talk about Thomas Costello. If you believe the claims, around 1961, Costello was a young surgeon stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, so in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Nellis is a really nice base. They have a really sick gift shop. I got a sweet T-shirt from there.
Well, I'm sure he spent a lot of his time there.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's a nice exchange they have there.
Well, his job was working as a military photographer, and he apparently had top secret clearance through his job. He was transferred to West Virginia, where he trained in advanced intelligence photography, and then moved to an underground installation, which would later be referred to as the Dolce installation.
Dolce base.
And it was here that his security clearance was raised, and he was given a new job. His job specification was he was to maintain, align, and calibrate video monitoring cameras throughout the underground complex.
What was his job title? He was a security photograph security technician or something like that.
Yeah, I like to picture him as Paul Blart.
Well, I mean, a lot of people claim that he's a security guard, but whenever his whole job is to maintain the photography equipment there, that's not necessarily a security guard. It's not like he's like a rent-a-cop that's there, the mall patrol guy.
But it's so much more fun imagining this guy riding through this military base on a Segway, giving high fives to these gray alien men.
Yeah, riding down the Hall of Nightmares on his Segway, freeing mentally retarded children from their prison cells.
Well, we haven't gotten to that part yet.
Well, we're gonna get there.
So this is where Thomas Costello's stories get pretty crazy, because he's working as this photograph security specialist, and claims around Thomas Costello say that there was a ton of crazy science projects going on in this base. Atomic manipulation, cloning, studies of the human aura, advanced mind control applications, animal and human crossbreeding.
I would really would like to know what the studies of the human aura are. That sounds like,
Sounds like something my hippie aunt.
Yeah, what your
doing.
aunt would say over there, talking about how the fact that they're a Cancer means that they're compatible with like Libras or something like that.
Well, apparently,
is that an aura? Is that what an aura is?
Well, you can't be telling me that the human. I'm actually a little bit mad right now that you're so blown away by the human aura, but the fact that there are aliens crossbreeding humans with alligators doesn't bug you.
Well, you see, one of them has a massive Pinterest following, the other one doesn't, and I'm inclined to believe the one that doesn't. And I'm going to assume alien alligator hybrids doesn't.
All right. Well,
whereas eating some ramen and doing some yoga and listening to some ocean sounds, lining your chakras, getting your aura balance, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I got a little bit harder time believing that.
Well, everyone,
I do lots of yoga, eat lots of ramen, and listen to lots of ocean sounds. And I don't know if I believe that my aura is really much more in line than it was before I started doing those things.
Well, everyone, I think that what Jay is trying to do is to get everyone to go and subscribe to his Pinterest page. So.
I am disinforming you of my aura. My aura is actually really powerful. I have a type 4 aura.
It's actually overwhelming me right now in the recording booth
yes,
that we are in.
It is a really large teal colored aura. Many women are attracted to its color. Teal is
its size.
Its size, yeah, very very large aura.
But it's not the size of the aura; it's how you use it.
It's not. Hey.
Anyway,
It is not the size of the wave, baby. It is the motion of the ocean.
Tried to stop us before we got there, everyone. I apologize. I was too late. Now let's talk about the specifics. Let's talk about the layout of this underground base. I found a bunch of different claims that were kind of interesting. Some people were claiming the Navajo Dam was the main power source for all the electrical power that was going into this base.
I believe that. That's pretty damn powerful.
With the second source in El Vado, which was also believed to be an entrance into the base. There are claimed to be a lot of entrances, over 100 secret exits and entrances near and around Dolce. Many around the Archuleta. Is it Archuleta? Is it like David Archuleta Mesa? Was it named after him? I think so. The David Archuleta Mesa, which was somewhere around the south of Dolce.
So we go to the lengths to figure out how to pronounce Dolce, right? Can't figure out how to pronounce Archuleta.
No, it's definitely the David Archuleta Mesa.
We'll go with it.
So let's talk about though. So we've talked about what's surrounding this, all these secret entrances, but what makes up this base, Jay?
Level 1, security and communication. Subterranean. Level 2, human staff housing. Subterranean. Level 3, execs and labs.
Now get ready, because here's where the big twist comes in.
Yes, this is where we begin the descent into hell. Subterranean level number 4, mind control experiments.
And here's the kicker for level 5.
Level 5, alien housing.
Oh boy, can't get any more weird than this.
Genetic experiments on level 6.
Also referred to as the Nightmare Hall.
I believe the Nightmare Hall is actually levels 6 and 7, Mr. T. Do you pity the fool that does not know about the...
You can't do that joke 2 episodes in a row.
The cryogenic storage on level 7.
Yeah, well, so let's talk a little bit more about level 6 and 7. Because 6, there are reports of bizarre experimentation. Multi-legged humans that look half human, half octopus. Reptilian humans and furry creatures that have hands like humans and cry like babies. They mimic human words and have a huge mixture of human lizards in a cage.
You know, it's really interesting that you have say that there's things that mimic humans. That is a huge report, especially by Navajo Indians with their legend of the Skinwalker, that they actually mimic human behavior in order to get close to people. Maybe
that's really interesting, actually, because this base is supposedly located on Navajo land. I'm not even kidding. I did not know that.
That's actually some kind of sick stuff right there. Maybe we're onto something here. Maybe they hop on the little train to Los Alamos that they have under there, and maybe they shuttle these skinwalker type creatures all across the country to abduct more. What is I don't want to say
more skin, right? That's what they need more of.
Yeah, they just walk around all day for skin. No, it is. They use it all the time in those movies like Splice. Anyways, yeah, Skinwalkers, they're made here. You heard it here first on Co.Spiracy podcast. Skinwalkers come from Dolce base.
Which Skinwalkers are one of my favorite cryptid kind of
totally.
stories. They're so creepy. The stories you read, the fictional stories you read about.
Yeah, the quote-unquote fictional stories. They're real to the Navajo.
Then there's level 7, which is apparently even worse. Row after row of thousands of humans and human mixtures in cold storage, embryo storage vats of humanoids in various stages of development.
And this is where they were trying to break through in order to expand the base to whatever nightmarish terrors they wanted to put in level 8 here. But unfortunately, them tall-ass aliens...
Well, no, it was apparently Thomas Costello. It's claimed that put an end to what was going on in this base.
Interesting.
Because he claims that... So level 7 is where they kept the humans who were undergoing basically these high-risk drug tests that caused them to go crazy and, to act like they had some kind of mental problems.
When on his, first day of work training, whenever they were given the good old grand tour of the facility, isn't that how they introduced them? That these were all, mentally handicapped men, women, and children that they had here, and not drugged up abductees that this Tom Morello claims happened.
Yeah, and apparently eventually one of them came up to him and revealed to him that he was actually kidnapped and abducted and forced to be down here and put through these tests. And Thomas Costello went back, did some research, and found out that this person was supposedly missing.
Interesting.
And went and did some more research and found out that of all the people on level 7 had been reported missing, vanished under mysterious circumstances from their homes.
Interesting. I think what's really kind of interesting about it is that they claim that there is 18,000 aliens.
Yeah, so I don't think this part we got across enough, because this is the most wacky theory part to me, is the fact that these tests were not done exclusively by aliens, exclusively by humans, but they were working together to perform these tests of genetic manipulation and mind control, mental manipulation.
Which makes you really kind of wonder why the aliens were fighting them whenever they're trying to construct level 8 when they were working together with the aliens. It makes you... Well, it's basically... they both kind of get contradictory information here. It's basically whoever this sick guitar player from Rage Against the Machine is versus Phil Schneider, who's missing a couple fingers. Yeah. Whichever one of these guys is telling the truth here is doing what's right, because the way that Phil Schneider implies it is that it is an entirely human base, and that the aliens that are like the ancient inhabitants of the Earth don't want them to be there. But this Tom Morello fella, Tom Costello fella, is over here saying that humans and aliens are working together here.
Well, yeah, because he claims that they both claim there was a firefight between Delta forces and aliens. But Costello claims that once he found out these people were missing, he tried to arrange some kind of way to free them. He was trying to find a way out, and one of the aliens read his mind, and the aliens started attacking the humans, and there's this big, huge battle between it, where security forces armed with weapons known as flash guns started fighting the great alien species.
And machine guns also.
Yes. And in the end, 68 humans were killed, 22 were completely vaporized, and 19 were able to escape. It doesn't say how many aliens ended up being taken out during the encounter.
I think it's really interesting that the number that is mentioned between both Mr. Costello's and Mr. Schneider's is 2. Yeah. Mr. Schneider claims that 66 Delta Force members were killed during his expedition to level 8, whereas Mr. Costello claims that 68 men were killed here.
And so he claims he's one of the ones who managed to escape through the tunnels, and he claims that he was able to get some proof while he was in there. He claims to have found and removed still photographs of the facility, as well as treaties that were signed by high-ranking military officials and even the current governor, Ronald Reagan. Might have heard of him. As well as a 7-minute black and white surveillance video of genetic experiments. And he also claims to have seen schematics of alien devices and complex genetic formulas. But none of this proof has ever come out. Not only has none of this proof ever come out, but there is no verifiable Thomas Costello.
We don't even know how his last name is spelled. I'm Personally, I'm convinced that this man is probably the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine.
All points.
You know, that would explain his out-of-world riffs and his crazy political stances he takes here.
Well, I remember that I did find one photograph that was supposedly released, not by Thomas Costello, but one of his many proxies, because he has a lot of people claim to be his proxy.
I guess we probably should mention that there has been no definitive statement on anywhere from this Thomas Costello fella that all of this information obtained by Thomas Costello is supposedly from his friend that he told all of this to.
Yeah.
That was then put onto the internet in various forums and various other hidey holes of the interconnected machines we have that we call the internet.
But we do have some of these photos and videos which have all been verified as hoaxes. There was one that was released as the photograph was captioned, Dolce-based security officer Thomas Costello leaked these photos to the public. He and his family are missing and presumed dead by the public. And it's this black and white, out of focus shot of all these alien shapes and these big bags of fluid floating in darkness. And it's a still from The Sixth Day, which is a 2000 American science fiction action film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold. That's right, you heard it, the governor himself.
And I haven't been able to find anything about it. I haven't been able to find this video that people keep talking about.
I feel like in my various times in the forums on the internet here, I feel like I think I remember seeing this video somewhere, and I think that someone linked an article in reply to that video saying that was pretty much proven to be a looped GIF from Independence Day.
Perfect.
Or something like that.
You think they would have at least picked a lesser known movie? Because I have never heard of The Sixth Day, but everyone on Earth has seen Independence Day.
Yeah, that's really kind of a true. It might not have been Independence Day, but it was some that was kind of like that there. But I think it's I think it's interesting.
Well, can I share with you one of my favorite segments? I'm going to read to you some of the theories and comments I found on various threads and websites completely devoted to this topic.
Go for it.
This one is from the Rational Wiki. Dolce Base is supposedly a super secret underground base near the town of Dolce, New Mexico, where aliens hang out and conspire to subjugate the human race.
Oh yeah, baby.
I just love how casual that is. They just hang out, they just chill and subjugate.
Chilling. They are chilling like the villains that they are there at Dolce Base.
I think it's the first time I've ever heard the words hang out and subjugate in the same sentence.
Maybe we should hang out more and I can subjugate you to some
hangouts.
Yeah.
And then it continues, according to the folks at Reptoid.com.
Reptoid.com.
Who believe the aliens are intelligent reptilians evolved from dinosaurs, of course. Dolce is only one of the many underground layers.
The concrete company?
It's one of the many underground layers that the evil race of lizard people use to orchestrate evil genetic experiments on humans. What's worse is that the reptoids are in cahoots with the gray aliens.
In cahoots. You heard it here. You've confirmed uncovered so many truths in this episode so far. We have that skinwalkers came from Dolce Base, that Arnold Schwarzenegger is directly involved in this, as well as Ronald Reagan, and now that the lizardmen are in cahoots with this too. You heard it here. New theory about this: lizardmen live at Dolce Base.
Well, and let's find another one. This was one of my personal favorite. This was on a YouTube video comment I found. Some people may not know this, but eventually some people find out those aliens aren't really from other planets. They're referred to as ETs, but did you know they're really demons in meat suits? I studied the topic for quite a while, and the secret slipped out somewhere along the way.
God, I wish I had a meat suit.
And it came from a very reliable source who knows all.
It's like Lady Gaga with her meat suit. Oh my god, these are all Lady Gaga.
And to continue, this was on a separate video, but a very similar theme. Don't fall for it! Exclamation point, exclamation point. They are demon beings, not aliens. Interdimensional beings that can walk through walls or whatever. They are genetically engineered by fallen angels and humans to deceive you. Notice they come from underground, hollow earth, and hell. Don't think they are aliens from outer space when they're just demons. And people thought it was religion or Christianity was boring. Nope, not real truth-seeking Christians that have discernment and God leading them. Jesus Christ is your only hope. So I think really everyone's problem in Dulce is that they're heathens.
Well, I like to point out the fact that they say they come from the Hollow Earth. I believe that they actually come from the outside of the Earth and that we live on the inside.
You mean space?
No, inverted Earth, baby.
Yeah,
I'm talking about that these guys live on the outside of the crust. We live on the inside of the mantle. Our sun, core of the Earth. Yeah, maybe they are ETs. Who really knows, though, because they're on the crust, we're on the inside. That is why solar power will never work for cars. You've heard it here.
So
the end. Go home.
Many things.
Now,
okay, well,
I
really
would
quick, because we are going to be pushing time as it is already, and so I don't mean to cut you off, but can we talk about really quickly what this conspiracy theory would mean if it was real?
Well, if it was real, then that would basically confirm what Gary McKinnon said in our last episode, that the United States most likely has some sort of presence outside of the Earth, that we are in direct contact and in cooperation with an intelligence that is not human.
Yeah, and so it confirms the belief of life outside of Earth.
Or outside of our current time, if you believe that the Greys are sent from the future.
Fair.
And they might not be from the outside of the Earth if they are ultra-terrestrials, like was also suggested that they have been here for hundreds of years or before us or whenever. It depends on what your origin for these Greys are, but I think that we need to stress here that it would just mean that the United States government is in cooperation with other intelligences that are not human.
Well, not only in cooperation, but directly kidnapping and performing horrendous tests upon United States citizens.
Well, and you gotta wonder where they would kind of get this from, where the technology for our secret space fleet would come from. Would probably I'm serious then. What would be the benefit of the United States offering up humans for this, but for an exchange for technology like free energy, anti-gravity, and such? I'm not very smart. You're not very smart. I don't think we would be able to reverse engineer an alien spacecraft, but maybe if we had some
we can barely reverse engineer a podcast.
deep but if we traded them some dudes and some chicks and stuff, I think that they would most likely be a little bit more willing to help us out with our fledgling space stuff.
Last question.
Lay it on me, baby.
Do you believe it? Or at least how much of it do you believe?
I believe that at the very least, there is most likely an underground military complex there, because regardless of the claims of Mr. Schneider and the supposed Costello, if Benowitz is to be believed, there were radio transmissions that, as a physicist, I believe in his ability to judge in their strength, and I think that it is totally possible that they could be there. There are probably many still classified underground military installations around the country. There have been strange lights in New Mexico and the surrounding area for a very long time now, as well as many strange military operations around there that have already been declassified. I think that it is incredibly possible for there to be some sort of military base in or around the Dolce area that is underground. Whether or not they have aliens there is up for debate, and still kind of up in the air in my head a little bit. I haven't really decided either way, but how about you? How do you feel about it?
I don't trust a lot of the information I found, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of I heard this, I heard that. It's a lot of contradictory information in a lot of cases. Let me counter. You gave me your I think at least as much is going on. I'm going to give you I think at most this is what's going on.
Fair.
I think that there might be some kind of underground facility. I don't think a base. I tend to lean more towards maybe it was a small testing facility or abandoned missile silo, something like that. I think there was some government stuff going on. I think there were tests of classified aircraft, something like that happening in a small unpopulated area where it had a very small chance of leaking majorly, especially at the time period where we didn't have as much camera stuff. And I think that maybe Benowitz found something involving this and got the disinformation. I think everyone just kind of got carried away in the story and in wanting to believe. You had Schneider. I think he wanted to believe. I think he was also suffering from paranoia and he was delusional, as well as just liking the attention. Thomas Costello, I think there's no chance on Earth he's real.
I'll give you that one. I would almost be willing to say, because what's the source on that article you had about Phil Schneider's self-harm issues? LinkedIn right there. I almost kind of believe that kind of stuff would be a classic case of disinformation, discrediting the host of disinformation now that he is not allowed to defend himself.
Mhm.
I think that point can be argued, but I mean, I think it's interesting because he probably would be able to, I guess, corroborate the fact that he would only be 17 there. But that said, I believe very firmly that the United States does have some sort of super advanced technology that could buy. I mean, the F-117 and the B-2 bomber were all construed as alien spacecrafts before they were declassified. I wouldn't be surprised if people around the Dolce area seeing these things flying around were not witnessing some sort of crazy-ass, sick, cool as hell spaceship that the U.S. Space Force is flying around. Yeah, some spaceman first class in there flying around, having a great old time.
With his good buddy, Gray Johnson. The gray alien with a heart of gold.
And a heart of pure energy. Shooting it out of his chest, Phil Schneider. And to kind of wrap up the information section of our podcast here, I want to give a description of the uniforms at the Dolce base. Right here it says that the security officers wear jumpsuits with the Dolce symbol on the front upper left side. The standard hand weapon at Dolce is called a flash gun, which is good against humans and aliens. The ID card, and this is my favorite part, has the Dolce symbol above the ID photo. Government honchos use cards with the Great Seal of the U.S. on it, as well as the Cult of the All-Seeing Eye, in parentheses, the New World Order, 13, and then it says something about 666 on there, and the Phoenix Empire, Illuminism, and then one out of many, E pluribus unum. Pretty convoluted uniform there. That sounds like a very busy work badge they have there. It has
a little bit, yeah.
Apparently it has all those things on it, which I get it. I get wanting to have some symbology there, but I feel like they need to fire whoever their graphic designer was for those cards, because it sounds like they did a terrible job.
Yeah. All right, well, to wrap it up, thank you so much for listening to the second episode of the Co.Spiracy podcast. Co.Spiracy, for anyone wondering how to spell it.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify under the name Co.Spiracy, and that's dot as in the period on the right. It's right next to the question mark. Yeah, the period that you use to end a sentence with. It is Co.Spiracy. That is piracy with an S in front of it. Spiracy podcast. Co.Spiracy podcast.
Okay, stop saying Co.Spiracy.
Co.Spiracy podcast.
Okay, go ahead, and if you enjoyed the show, like us on Facebook, like us on Twitter.
Especially follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter.
Because I think we got locked out of our Facebook again.
Follow us on Spotify, and leave us a review on iTunes if you're feeling it. If you for some reason need to get a hold of us, if you have an idea for an episode or just want to give us a shout out, you can reach us at our Gmail, which is co.spiracypodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.
Oh, if you really like us, you run into your front yard and yell Co.Spiracy podcast as loud as you can so I can hear it.
Yeah, just yell it to the skies here.
Yeah, the aliens will let us know that you said it, and we'll be sending you some free swag your way, I guess.
All right, everyone. For the last time, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep an open mind.
I love you.
Thank you so much. And back by special request, we have another YouTube reading. It's hard for me to believe that people can think aliens created us. That's so. Why would they be kidnapping people and cattle to experiment on them instead of just creating what they want to create? Just like their leader, Lucifer, they come down to destroy God's creation because they hate God. And we are created in His image, therefore hating anything He created. They are destroying everything, including our Earth, through chemtrails, GMOs, to poison us, as well as many other ways. Our only refuge is in the Lord God Almighty, through His Son, Jesus Christ. So I plead with the readers to repent and turn to Jesus. Thank you so much. This has been the Co.Spiracy Podcast.